In this recruitment, Monet, Baby 5 and Sugar all surrendered directly to Luoya. For those who did not surrender to Roja, Roja directly used the power of the phantom fruit to hypnosis them and forget what happened just now. Roja's figure has disappeared. Except for the 3 women who surrendered to Roja, the others did not remember Roja at all and even came to the prison at the bottom of the ship. As for why not just people like hypnosis, and let them join their ranks? Mainly because after hypnosis, it will cause huge trauma to their minds, and they may become fools at any time. They are not like Weibel. Although they are not smart, they are very powerful. If their brains don't work well, their combat effectiveness will be reduced by at least half. There is no comparison between the two. The 3 women only felt chilled by Roja's terrifying methods. After stretching, Roja came to the restaurant, tasted the wine of Macchino, enjoyed the wonderful leisure time, and then drove towards Marineland. He has already decided that when he returns, he will ask for leave and take the girls with him to go sightseeing and relax. Although this is what he thinks in his heart, the most important thing in Roya's heart is to improve the strength of the girls. Only when the strength is improved can one be able to act recklessly on this sea. The most important thing is that only in this way can Roja feel at ease. If an unprecedented war really breaks out, then they can definitely become their most powerful help. At this time, there is still some time before Malinfando. Bored, Roja directly transferred his body to Zero. Noah's Ark, which is as huge as an island, sails rapidly in the air. Seeing this scene, Karina felt that her outlook had been refreshed. As the only external member of Morning and Night Bird, she is still too unfamiliar with everything in this organization. After switching his body to the identity of Zero, Roja said to Karina, "There will be many things that will shock you in the future. If you really want to become an internal member, you'd better practice more and you'll be in a better state of mind." Karina nodded thoughtfully. At the same time, the ship's spirit on Noah's Ark sounded the sound of wind chimes at this time. "Are you saying that we are about to reach the position marked on the chart? And this position is the same as Whiskey Peak?" At the same time, the system's electronic sound sounded in Roja's mind. Ding! Release the check-in task, Whiskey Peak. Reward, Mechanical Soldier Factory. Time limit, 1 day. Roja's brows wrinkled slightly, but they soon relaxed. He could already imagine why the chart pointed to Whiskey Peak. Whiskey Peak is home to a large number of bounty hunters. In fact, they gathered together because they were eyeing the bounty of the pirates heading to the Grand Line. Many young and inexperienced pirates became their meals. I guess they used this chart to attract other people to hunt for treasure, and then tried to catch turtles in the jar. After all, this chart appears in the 4 seas. I guess they don't have the courage to distribute these charts in the Great Channel. As long as a strong person passes by, he can directly kill them all. "I'm just bored right now, so let's go over and join in the fun." As Roja's words fell, Roja directly took Noah's Ark into the system space. In an instant, Karina's face turned pale due to the strong feeling of weightlessness. Ah! Karina only felt that her body was completely out of her control and was falling crazily. At this speed, if it falls on the sea, there is no difference at all from falling directly to the ground. By then, you will definitely be smashed into pieces. Thinking of this, Karina closed her eyes subconsciously. Next to his ears was the howling wind. At this moment, the strong wind seemed to turn into a hunting blade, blowing on Karina's face. Very raw. "Lord Leader, please save me! Save me!" Karina kept calling Roja loudly. She wants Roja to save her. However, as time passed, Roja did not take action. Instead, Karina and I looked at Karina in front of us with interest. Karina's cloak has been blown down by the strong wind. Her hair was scattered in the air, looking very embarrassed. Karina yelled crazily in the air, just as her strength disappeared. She screamed and screamed, but she couldn't scream anymore. On the contrary, he has adapted slightly to the current situation. Karina looked at Roja and Karina, who were descending quickly with her, with longing in their eyes. She couldn't scream anymore. I have even become accustomed to this fear of falling quickly. Looking at Karina in front of him, Roya used the power of the spell after it was almost done. let her speed slowly slow down. At this time, the waves on the sea could just touch Karina's toes. Yes, being able to adapt to this kind of fear shows that there is still some potential. Karina looked at the sea below and took a deep breath. Then he jumped directly into Roha's arms. He hugged Roha tightly and dared not let go. Although Karina has adapted to fear, this fear will still burst out instantly after safety. About 10 minutes passed. Karina finally relaxed. After rearranging his cloak, he left Roha's arms under Kuina's envious and jealous gaze. As if aware of Kuina's gaze, Luo Adam immediately reached under Kuina's hood and rubbed her hair lovingly. Let's go, let's see what kind of treasure is there in the Whiskey Mountain Peak. As Roha's words fell, the power of the phantom fruit was activated. It instantly turned into a phantom coat, changing everyone's appearance. Even the iconic cloak on his body has disappeared. Immediately afterwards, the three of them flew towards the Whiskey Mountain Peak. In just a few moments, Roha had arrived at the edge of the island where Whiskey Mountain Peak was located. The moment Roya stood on it, the system's beep sounded again in Roya's mind. Ding! Congratulations to host for receiving the reward, Mechanical Soldier Factory. The Mechanical Soldier Factory, as long as it provides materials, can manufacture mechanical soldiers in large quantities. The mechanical soldiers are far superior to ordinary soldiers and can be upgraded and transformed. When Luo Ye saw the upgrade of the system, he already knew what it meant. Luo Ye has a scientific research mind that is at least 1,000 years ahead of the current era. It can be said that upgrading the mechanical factory is very simple. Moreover, the most important thing is that one of Roha's clones is now the king of the kingdom of Battle Isla. If he wants to organize the world, he must conquer cities and territories. The most powerful thing about the machinery factory is that it does not consume manpower. Just put in the materials. In the world of pirates, the most indispensable thing is all kinds of materials. The three people stepped on the ground and walked towards the highest point of Whiskey Mountain. Roha and Kuina were already keenly aware that there were several malicious eyes around them, watching them. It's just that Roha and Kuina didn't pay attention to these sights at all. Only Karina didn't notice anything and just walked forward boldly. When the bounty hunter hiding next to her saw Karina's actions, a disdainful smile suddenly appeared on his lips. At the same time, they observed the three Rohas and the accessories on their bodies, and thought to themselves, "It looks like another fat sheep." Immediately, they informed the other hunters at Whiskey Peak. After receiving the report from the front line and confirming that it was a fat sheep, the bounty hunters had already started celebrating in advance. This is also a method they use to confuse people. I saw that the originally somewhat monotonous Whiskey Mountain Peak transformed in just a short moment. He was decorated by a group of bounty hunters and looked stylish. The air has even begun to fill with the aroma of wine. People can't help but indulge in it. The further we walked toward Whiskey Mountain, the more crowded the crowd became. And these people, after seeing Luo Ye and others, were all very enthusiastic. This made Karina very confused. She pulled Roya next to her and asked, "Master Chief, why do they welcome us so much?" Just as Karina finished speaking, a figure came from a distance. "Welcome, warrior of the sea. I am the mayor of Whiskey Peak. This is a town famous for its brewing and music. Entertaining guests is what we are most proud of." Ikaram looked at the three people in front of him and said to everyone with very skilled words, "We have as much wine as the sea. I wonder if we will be lucky enough to use your stories of adventures on the sea as our next book. Food and drinks, come and enjoy the banquet with me?" After hearing the words of the curly-haired Ikaram in front of him, Roha looked at each other and smiled at Kuina next to him, and then said, "Of course it's no problem, banquets and stuff, we like it the most." The phantom disguises used by Luo Ye and the others now are three sturdy men. As an old actor, Luo Ye laughed out loud at this time. The heroic voice echoed in the streets. Everyone who heard Roha's laughter couldn't help but laugh. However, they were laughing at the three people in front of them. They had no idea what kind of island they had arrived at. This is called the Pirate's Grave. What Roya laughed at was that they had no idea what kind of terrifying person they were facing. He is a man who can stir up the new world and even the entire ocean." Both parties laughed happily, and the joyful laughter floated from the island to the sky. Beautiful music is played at this time. Passers-by on the street took out their musical instruments. Melodious music floated into the ears of Luoya and others. Surrounded by people, they arrived at a tavern. As soon as they entered the tavern, Roja and the others saw, in the center of the tavern, a girl with waist-length blue hair, wearing a very flirty dress, twisting her waist. When the girl saw Roja and others walking in, she took cat steps and came to Roja, and started dancing wildly in front of Roja. The atmosphere is more lively. At this time, Ikarim was holding a large wine barrel in his hand. Came to Roja's side and invited them to sit down. At the same time, he boldly placed the wine barrel in front of Roja and said to Roja, "Brave adventurer, let us use your story as an appetizer to party together." With that said, Ikarim took the lead and drank all the wine in the cup. This is a psychological hint, indicating that there is nothing wrong with his drink. Luoya also smiled and said without mind, "Ha ha 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 ha, okay, but don't scare you with my story." With that said, Roja also took a big sip of wine. It's just that this wine is just like water compared to the wine of Maginot. Soon, Roja drank most of the wine in the barrel, and then told his story to the many bounty hunters with a red face. The girl with blue hair also sat next to Roja at this time, with a smile on her face, and just looked at Roja quietly. He seemed to be listening to Roja's story very seriously. Roja grinned and said, "Let me tell you something that happened to me before. Do you know the predecessor for Emperor's Bigmam?" When they heard Bigmam's name, everyone was stunned subconsciously. Ikarim looked at Roja in front of him, his face a little solemn, and said, "Bigmam, what's wrong?" "It's okay, it's just that I was invited to attend Bigmam's tea party, but it turned out that I was stuck on the last day. It turns out, I originally wanted to participate properly and experience the atmosphere, but who knew, Bigmam and I accidentally ended up." The fight started. Taking another sip of wine, Roja said to everyone, "If I hadn't known Bigmam's weakness, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to defeat her so easily." As Roja's words fell, all the bounty hunters in the tavern swallowed subconsciously. "We have heard about this battle. I even saw relevant reports in newspapers. That was the battle that Zero, the leader of the morning and night birds, became officially famous for. Although it has happened for a long time, because of this, more people have become aware of this matter." Vivi sat in front of Roja and shuddered subconsciously. Because they didn't know whether the person in front of them was the real leader of the morning and night birds, Zero. After all, he was wearing a cloak. However, they felt that the three big men in front of them did not look alike in terms of their body shapes. At this time, Roja took out the chart that Karina had given him before and said to everyone, "When I was in Sihai, I found this chart. Do you know what happened to this chart?" After hearing Roya's words and the chart that Roya took out, the tension in Weiwei and Ikarim's hearts immediately dissipated. At this time, what Roja said just now fell into everyone's ears, and it was just bragging. Not to mention the physical reasons. But that's the thing about charts. Let me ask, as the leader of the mysterious organization Morning Bird, can he really like this kind of thing? Also, the most important thing is body shape. Although they haven't actually seen him in person, they can tell from the newspapers. Zero's figure should be similar to that of Marine General White Pigeon Roya. Back when they were in the Sabedi Islands, the two of them fought, completely destroying Island Number 1, which shocked countless people at sea. Therefore, after eliminating a series of factors, Ikarim and Vivi felt relieved. Immediately, Ikarim gave Roja another drink, filled it up, and said to Roja, "This is simply the best story I have ever heard. As for this chart, it is indeed the Whiskey Peak. Wait until dawn tomorrow. When the time comes, we will take you there." Hearing Ikarim's words, Roja laughed and said, "Ha ha 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 ha, no problem, I will trouble you tomorrow." As Roja's words fell, Ikarim thought to himself, "Tomorrow? After you drink our wine, you will have no tomorrow." Sure enough, as Roja finished speaking, Karina, who had also drunk a lot, fell down first. Luoya deliberately pretended not to know, and laughed loudly in the tavern again. Ha ha ha, I'm laughing so hard, your ability to drink is too bad. But when Roja finished saying this, Roja's body began to shake. Then he fell down. Kuina was stunned for a moment when she saw this scene. She had never heard Roja say that she was going to perform or anything. But she, who is talented and intelligent, has obviously realized what is going on. I saw Kuina also shook a few times and lay directly on Roja's body. Then he hugged Roja tightly. Obviously, there is Kuina's little thought in this. Because of Karina's behavior before, Kuina now wants to hug her master. Seeing the three strong men in front of him fall down on the table, Ikaram was very disdainful. You talk about how awesome you are, but it turns out you're just bragging. After saying this, Ikaram immediately said to everyone, Everyone, have a good time. After the carnival is over, we will take care of these three people. Good. Many bounty hunters cheered at this time. Listening to the cheers around him, Roja didn't pay attention. No one came to talk to them anyway. Just treat it like this and sleep for a while. Unknowingly, the time has come to midnight. Until this time, the carnival was finally over. After settling everything, Roya Karam and the others finally remembered the existence of Roya and others in front of them. Kill them directly, then take off the treasures from their bodies, and then look carefully for where their ships are parked. Yes. Following Ikaram's order, a bounty hunter next to him pulled out a gun from his waist. He shot towards Roja without hesitation. Bang! Gunfire rang out. The smell of gunpowder smoke floated in the tavern. The projectile traced a trajectory in the air and hit Roja directly. However, when the bullet landed on Roja's body, it seemed to have no effect. The bullet seemed to hit Roja lightly. After making a mark, it fell directly to the ground. What's happening here? Everyone was very puzzled when they saw this scene in front of them. I said, Lao Wu, have you bought fake bullets? Why are you so optimistic about whether they are useful or not? Look at me! After the man said this, he aimed directly at Kuina, who was lying on Roja's arm, and fired. This time the gunshots were louder. The recoil made the man's arm go numb. The projectile landed on Kuina's body at an extremely fast speed. However, Kuina seemed to be fine. How is this possible? This is absolutely impossible, damn it! I don't believe it! As he spoke, the man shot at Karina on the far left again. Just this time. When the projectile just came out. A flash of sword light flashed, and the bullet was instantly chopped into pieces. The business and even the man with his gun were directly split in half. Ryujin Jakka didn't know when he had appeared in Roja's hands. After all, Karina wasn't just pretending, she was really drunk. Moreover, her body has not started training yet, and not to mention various physical reasons, she does not know how to use iron blocks. Roya snapped his fingers. Phantom lifted. The phantoms on Roya, Kuina and Karina completely disappeared at this time. The black robe on his body was exposed. In an instant, the faces of Ikaram and Vivi became extremely pale. Especially Ikaram, who subconsciously said, How could? Before they finished speaking, Roja said, Kuina! Yes, master! As the sharpest sword of her master, Kuina drew the sword from her waist. A cold light suddenly appeared in the tavern. Except for Ikaram and Vivi in front of Roja, all the bounty hunters who saw this cold light. At this time, all the heads were separated. A fountain of blood immediately flooded the tavern. A purgatory-like scene came into view. At this time, Roja also stretched out his Ryujin Jakka. He put it against Ikaram's neck and said to Ikaram, Didn't I hint to you before? Why don't you believe it? Hearing Roja's words, Ikaram and Vivi felt their bodies tremble. Their pupils shrank suddenly. They really didn't expect that the person in front of them was actually the legendary leader of morning and night birds. The commotion in the tavern attracted the attention of other bounty hunters. I saw other bounty hunters walking towards the tavern, wanting to find out what happened in the tavern. However, they hadn't waited until they entered the tavern. Kuina had already rushed out. Whiskey Peak is full of bounty hunters. If it's a bounty hunter from somewhere else, forget it. but they will never show mercy to the bounty hunters at Whiskey Mountain. Because this is not only a gathering place for bounty hunters, but also a branch of the secret criminal organization, Baroque Walker. Therefore, rather than leaving them alone, it would be better to deal with them directly. There were constant screams outside, but as time went by, the screams became less and less. And the bodies of Vivi and Ikaram are getting colder and colder. In the tavern, Roja just looked at the two people in front of him quietly. He said coldly, "Should I call you Mr. 8 and Miss Wednesday? Or should I call you Ikaram and Princess Vivi?" As Roja's words fell, Vivi and Ikaram felt as if their bodies had fallen directly into the ice cellar. Especially Vivi, she subconsciously said. "You! How do you know my identity?" Vivi subconsciously took a step back. Her heartbeat gradually accelerated, and she felt as if she had no secrets in front of Roja. What frightens her the most is that her identity has been completely exposed. Does this also mean that Crocodile already knows their identity? After all, if one person knows it, others may know it. As if aware of Vivi's thoughts, Roja said to Vivi, "Well, you don't have to worry. Only I know the identities of the two of you for the time being. As for the other people on this island, they have probably gone to hell." "You! What do you want? I'm actually curious. As a princess, why are you willing to sneak into the Baroque Chinese society to work? Is it really just to collect evidence about Crocodile? In this way, the people of your country can understand his true face?" After hearing Roja's words, Vivi nodded seriously. "Yes, I want to end the war in the Kingdom of Alabasta, because the rain only fell in the capital, causing our country to start a war, and as long as I expose Crocodile's crimes, I can completely end the war." "Got it. Can war really disappear? Without absolute combat power, you have no right to speak when facing a strong man. What if Crocodile wants to forcefully launch a war? Forcibly starting a war? No, it shouldn't be possible. You must know that Crocodile is a Shichibukai. He is a pirate recognized by Marine, and he will never launch a sudden attack." Looking at Vivi in front of him, Roja couldn't help but wanted to expose the illusion of the person in front of him with such innocent words. "Don't think Shichibukai is too naive. You must know that he plans to steal a country. And according to my understanding, his ambitions don't stop there. His most fundamental purpose is Pluton hidden in Alabasta." When Roja said this, the corners of his mouth raised slightly. "Do you think a pirate can still keep his calm when encountering Pluton, one of the 3 major weapons?" As Roja's words fell, Vivi and Ikaram next to her were completely stunned. He will definitely attack Alabasta, even if it means giving up Shichibukai's position." "You are right. Without the deterrence of absolute force, that lunatic Crocodile will definitely do this. You know, he was the man who challenged Whitebeard in the first place." After hearing Roja's words, Vivi felt her eyes light up. At this time, Ray clenched her fist inadvertently. Vivi said to Roja, "You killed all the bounty hunters in Whiskey Peak, but you didn't kill us. You even chatted with us here. Could it be that your goal is also Alabasta, or Pluton?" Vivi's eyes were fixed on Roya in front of her, wanting to know Roya's answer. However, in response to this, the corners of Luoya's mouth slightly raised. "If I really fall in love with Pluton, why don't I just go to the Water City and get Pluton's design drawings? You know, in the Water City, but there are still design drawings for Pluton." Roya's words were like a bombshell, exploding directly in Vivi and Ikaram's ears. They originally thought that their country was already very powerful because it had the historical text of Pluton. But what I didn't expect is that in today's world, there are still Pluton design drawings. This is beyond their imagination. Then what is your real purpose? Our true purpose. Having said this, Roja came to Vivi's ear and whispered to Vivi, "Our real purpose is..." As Roja's words fell, Vivi's eyes suddenly shrank, and then she subconsciously took a step back. The body instantly lost its balance, and then fell directly to the ground. "Crazy, you are absolutely crazy. But now you have no choice, right? Either choose to accept our protection and be loyal to us in the future, or wait for Crocodile and gradually encroach on your country, Or we can help Crocodile in the past, but it seems that there is no what is the problem. Hearing Roha's words, Vivi felt that the zero in front of her was so shameless. She really couldn't imagine why the leader of the mysterious organization Morning Night Bird could be such a rogue. Rely on your own strength to do some forced buying and selling work. Okay, I promise you, announce to the world that Alabasta accepts the protection of the Morning and Night Bird. Vivi's eyes were full of hatred as she looked at Zero in front of her. But there was nothing she could do. However, Vivi still has some concerns. Then have you ever considered that if we declare the world Alabasta will become a target of public criticism, and maybe the first person sent here will be Marine's most powerful general by Ge? Hear Vivi's words. Don't worry, this is absolutely impossible. You may not believe it, but actually my wish is world peace. Vivi rolled her eyes immediately, but didn't say anything in the end. Because the man in front of me is the man who truly defeated Big Mom. Even if they use all the power of the country, they still have no way to defeat Roha. If they could really defeat Roha, they wouldn't be obsessed with the crocodile. At the same time, the system's electronic sound also sounded in Roya's mind. Ding, release the check-in mission, Alabasta Kingdom. Reward, good weather card. Time, 3 days. After hearing the system's mission, Roha didn't waste any time. He said directly to Vivi and Ikaram, "Without further delay, let us set off immediately." As Roha's words fell, the figure of Noah's Ark appeared in the sky out of thin air. When everyone walked out of the tavern, they saw the endless Noah's Ark. Is this the ship in the newspaper? This size is too big. Vivi looked at Noah's Ark in front of her, and felt that her heart was shocked. The most important thing is that such a large ship can still fly in the air. This is what Vivi, Ikaram and others cannot imagine. Is there anything you want to get? There is none left. In that case, let's move towards the kingdom of Alabasta now. I hope we can give Crocodile a little surprise. As Roha's words fell, Vivi and Ikaram felt their bodies suddenly lighten up. Then the whole person floated towards the sky. Is this also your ability? Vivi said in shock to Roha next to her. In response, Roha just replied, "Keep it confidential." Then that person just now, don't we have to wait for her? Don't worry, she will be here soon. As if to verify Roha's words, Karina's figure quickly rushed up from below. Soon, everyone came to the deck of Noah's Ark. There are guest rooms inside. You can choose as you like. Any place where you can enter the gate of opening is accessible. If nothing else happens, we will sail at full speed and we will be able to reach Alabasta in less than 3 days. Hearing Roha's words, Vivi subconsciously said, "Is it so fast?" Of course, you must know that I am the leader of Morning and Night Birds. It's just this little ability, it's just trivial. Vivi took a deep look at Roha, and then said to Roha, "If you can really bring peace to our country, then it is not a bad thing for us to surrender to you. Don't worry, this cooperation is a win-win situation." As Roha's words fell, Noah's Ark began to rise in the air, rushing forward, and at the same time, it continued to rise in height. At this time, a cry sounded in everyone's ears. Karina, who was brought up by Roha with the power of a spell, slowly woke up at this time. The eyelashes trembled slightly, and then Karina opened her eyes and looked at everything around her. Sitting up, Karina said to everyone, "What happened? Why am I on the boat now? Aren't we in the middle of a banquet?" After a pause, Karina covered her head, feeling a little dizzy. Logically speaking, I shouldn't. My drinking capacity is pretty good. It's just a bucket of wine. Why did I fall down? Karina is heard talking to herself. Luo Ye immediately said to Karina, "It's not because you are too weak, the drink was drugged. Of course you fell down as soon as you drank it." When Karina heard this, she stood up from the ground in a daze. At this moment, Roha used the power of the spell to control the orange in the middle of Noah's Ark and threw it directly towards Karina. "Eat one, it will refresh your mind." Karina is very familiar with Nami and the oranges from Noki High School. He ate it immediately. Sure enough, after eating it, Karina felt much more alert. Karina turned around, looked at Vivi and Ikaram next to her, and said to Roja, "Master Leader, these two people are. One is the Princess of Alabasta, and the other is the captain of the escort team." Hearing Roja's words, Karina's pupils shrank suddenly. She subconsciously said, "Isn't that a lot of money?" Vivi looked embarrassed. "Now that Alabasta has been in war for a long time, there is no extra money at all." "Then we are. Help them reassert their right to the throne." Within the kingdom of Alabasta, Albana. This is the capital of the Alabasta kingdom. Above the sky, the dark clouds looked extremely thick. Faintly, arcs can also be seen flashing in it. Cobra stood at the door of the palace, looking at the dark clouds in the sky, his eyes full of gloom. "Belle, go immediately to investigate who is using dancing powder in Alba. You must catch me." "Yes." Belle took the order and immediately transformed into the form of the animal type, bird fruit, and falcon, and then rushed towards the sky. It started to rain, constantly nourishing the earth. It brought infinite vitality to the royal capital located in the desert. At first, Cobra thought so too, thinking it was God's blessing. Let Alabasta become an oasis in the desert again. However, what Cobra didn't expect was that everything seemed beautiful. In fact, they are just people with ulterior motives who want to destroy Alabasta. Therefore, after Cobra learned about this incident, it can be said that he was very shocked. However, no matter how he investigated, he could not find out who was behind the scenes. It wasn't until his daughter, Vivi, spent a lot of time investigating after joining the Baroque Chinese society. Only then did we finally investigate the matter. Only then did Cobra realize that the hero in their eyes, Crocodile, was responsible. This was something Cobra never expected. But nowadays, Crocodile's reputation among Alabasta can be said to be at its peak. And his credibility has declined very seriously in this short period of time. Without absolute evidence that it was Crocodile who did it, he can't touch him. Cobra knew all this. But the people don't know. Especially among the recent people, Cobra discovered the existence of rebels. He sighed at the door of the palace. "Maybe I'm really not a good king." About 30 kilometers from Albana. In the rebel headquarters. As the leader, Kosha was in a simple conference room, looking at the latest information. "Are you sure? Is that man at the port really Cobra?" Kosha said to the person next to him. "Yes, the investigation has been clear. According to the informant's report, it is indeed Cobra who is at the port, and seems to be checking the items in person. According to our investigation, these so-called items are actually dancing fans. Dancing powder, also known as rain-calling powder. Looks like a green powder. This was invented a long time ago in a country where it doesn't rain. It can produce mist-like smoke floating in the air, producing so-called artificial rain. The origin of the name is the hope that people can dance and celebrate happily because of the rain. However, once this powder is used, drought will occur in neighboring countries living downwind, and a war breaks out in the country that discovers this. From then on, the world government banned the production and possession of this powder. This is why Kosha was so disappointed after learning about Cobra and purchasing dancing powder himself. He used to be Kosha, but he regarded Cobra as his idol. I want to work hard in the direction of Cobra and keep working hard. But now, Kosha just wants to oust Cobra from the throne. Because in his opinion, Cobra is completely unqualified to be the king. The prince and General Xiang Ning have the guts. At this time, this was the thought in Kosha's mind. Now that the evidence is conclusive, let everyone gather immediately and we start the attack. Pull Cobra directly from the throne. Hearing Kosha's words, the man next to him nodded quickly. Yes, I understand, sir. I will notify the entire army to launch the final attack. It rains constantly. Bell soars in the sky. In the air, he immediately noticed the changes below. His brows were furrowed. I felt bad in my heart. Bell immediately turned around and flew towards the palace. He must tell the king the news, otherwise it will be too late. Thinking of this, Bell's speed became a little faster. Meanwhile, in Alabasta Rainland. This is Alabasta Stream City, Crocodile's base camp, and the kingdom's largest casino, Rain Feast, is located here. In the casino, Crocodile also heard the report from his subordinates. Really, has that guy Kosa launched his final attack? He really can't bear his temper, Crocodile said thoughtfully. As if he thought of something, Crocodile said to himself, "Let me add a little frivolous fireworks to Alabasta." Having said this, the gloomy expression on Crocodile's face seemed a little excited at this time. Because it is related to the animal type, bird fruit, and falcon form. Bell's speed can be said to be very fast. In just a few moments he returned to the palace. When Cobra saw Bell coming back so quickly, he quickly sat up from his seat. "Bell, you came back so soon, did you find any evidence?" Cobra stood up from the throne and asked Bell excitedly. However, Bell shook his head and said, "Your Majesty, no, it's the rebels. They have begun to gather. If nothing happens, they will attack the palace in a short time." After hearing Bell's words, Cobra slumped down in his chair. A wry smile appeared on his face. "Has the situation reached this point now?" Cobra murmured. "I just feel that my heart is full of bitterness." Bell was secretly worried when he saw his king looking so lost. "Your Majesty King, we must gather the troops immediately and must completely suppress the rebel offensive, otherwise." At this point, Bell stopped talking, and Cobra could guess what Bell wanted to say. However, Cobra also had his own thoughts about this. "After all, they are actually my people too. They were just deceived by that guy Crocodile. Because of this, Your Majesty the King, you must work harder. Let your people know what kind of person you are. And what kind of person Crocodile is." Hearing Bell's words, Cobra's eyes flashed with tenacity. "You are right, Bell, announce it immediately, and the entire army will assemble and prepare to fight." Hearing Cobra's words, Bell nodded quickly and immediately went down to make arrangements. At this moment, Cobra's phone rang. Brubber brubber. The phone bug imitates Vivi's face. When he saw his daughter, he called him. Cobra secretly wondered, is there any progress on Vivi's side? But even so, he can't let his daughter return to Alabasta now. Because Alabasta is too dangerous now. Thinking of this, Cobra directly answered the phone and said to Vivi, "Vivi, where are you now?" "Father, I am heading towards Alabasta with the Karam. We expect to reach Alabasta within 2 days," Vivi said to Cobra in a calm voice. However, when Cobra heard Vivi's words, he quickly said, "No, you can never come back now. Alabasta is very dangerous now." The expression on Vivi's face suddenly became more serious. "Father, what happened?" Vivi was very anxious. Ever since her mother passed away, her father has been encouraging her. She couldn't accept that something happened to her blood relative. "Anyway, don't come here now. Obey Vivi. You are my only child. Once the kingdom is safe, I will send someone to take you back." Having said this, Cobra directly hung up the phone bug. Vivi's face was as cold as frost at this time. She has roughly guessed what is happening now. Thinking of this, Vivi looked at Roja and immediately said to Roja, "Master Leader, can you make the speed of the ship a little faster?" Roja shook his head slowly. "The current speed is already the fastest speed." "But my father sighed." Looking at the expression on Vivi's face, the corners of Roja's mouth raised slightly. "It's Alabasta, what happened?" Vivi nodded, and then immediately bowed to Roja and said, "Master Chief, please, as long as you are willing to help me, I am willing to organize services sincerely from now on. Since you have said it to this extent, then I agree." As Roja's words fell, Roja came to Vivi and directly hugged Princess Vivi in his arms. Then Roja slowly closed his eyes. Then suddenly opened it. In an instant, Roja's momentum suddenly exploded. The cloak behind him was blowing loudly. 8 gates Dunjia Formation Gate of Death open. With the opening of the 8 gates Dunjia Formation, Roja's strength suddenly increased several times. At this time, the peak of the 6 styles also showed its role. I saw Roya constantly using moonwalk and moving quickly towards Alabasta. The strong wind whistled in Vivi's ears. But she was protected by Roya. I just feel very relieved at this time. As long as Roja can be present, I think Alabasta's problems during this period will be completely shattered. However, at the same time, in the distant Alabasta, a war also started at this time. Both led by Kosha and Cobra, their armies clashed with each other. The capital of Alabasta. At this time, it was like turning into a battlefield. A large number of rebels continued to pour out at this time. They held swords and guns in their hands and rushed toward the palace crazily. A large number of people kept rushing out. So much so that the streets were filled with yellow sand. Cobra clenched his fists tightly. He stood on the highest peak and looked down at everything happening in front of him. He just felt like his heart was bleeding. Your Majesty, the army has been assembled. Please give instructions. Bell stood in front of Cobra and said to Cobra. However, Cobra didn't respond at all. Your Majesty, the army has been assembled. Please give instructions. Bell repeated again, this time his voice was a little louder. Cobra's hand slowly relaxed. Bell, with the king's order, I once again appoint you as the commander of this war. The entire army obeys your command. I heard Cobra's orders. Bell immediately responded. Yes. After getting Cobra's consent, Bell immediately ordered. Gunner, prepare, fire! Bell used the megaphone to give orders to everyone. The gunners below the city wall also started loading ammunition at this time. Cannonball fired. Draw an arc in the air, and then bombarded on the ground. Boom! 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 The sound of countless bombs exploding echoed in everyone's ears. At this time, Cobra slowly closed his eyes, tears falling from the corners of his eyes. He did not expect that he would be the leader of a country. One day he will open fire on his own people. Even at this time, their identities are rebels. Cannons roared. As the leader of the rebel army, Kosa was the first to bear the brunt at this time and was at the forefront. Wearing a pair of anti-sand glasses, Kosha looked gloomy. He thought to himself, sure enough, King Cobra is no longer the original Cobra. He must make a revolution and regain the reign. Thinking of this, Kosha stretched out his arms and shouted heartbreakingly. Charge! Drag Cobra off the throne! Capture Albana! With Kusha as the leader, the momentum of the rebel army has increased a lot again. The buffer distance between the king's army and the rebel army is shrinking faster and faster. There are more and more contacts. In an instant, the two armies were fighting. The royal army and the rebel army finally began a formal confrontation. The sound of gunshots, cannons, and swords clashing constantly echoed in my ears. No, it's the Clawed Duck Force. The elite guard group of the Kingdom of Alabasta. They are just too strong. No, the offensive has slowed down. Chief, what should we do now? In the battlefield, the moment this elite force appeared, the balance of war suddenly turned one-sided. There are 4 people in the Clawed Duck troop, namely, an extremely muscular man holding a huge machete, a thin-looking man holding a double-edged axe in both hands, a man holding a long sword that looked like a hemp pole, a portly man with a short-handled battle axe. When these 4 men appeared on the battlefield, their fierce fighting power was instantly revealed. They just stood at the door of the palace. No one is their enemy. With the strength of the rebels, there was no way to break through their defenses in a short period of time. Seeing this scene in front of him, Kosha felt his heart sinking. He obviously didn't expect that Alabastus elite troops would be so powerful. Even if they have the advantage in numbers, it's also hard to beat them. While Kosha was thinking about the plan, suddenly there was a voice in the distance. It's all about Alabasta! After hearing the sound, Kosha immediately turned around and looked in the direction of the sound. It was a tall, muscular man who looked like a Shaolin monk. There are snake tattoos on both sides of the chest of the clothes, and a bald man with the word tattooed on his chest. Kosha didn't even recognize the man in front of him. However, there are so many rebels that it is normal for them not to know each other. Kosha looked at this man and actually wanted to be alone. He rushed towards the elite troops and said quickly, "Quickly retreat. The strength of ordinary people cannot be compared with them." It's just that this man didn't seem to hear it. Taking big steps, he rushed forward. When the clawed duck troops saw someone, they actually dared to rush towards them alone. There was a disdainful smile on every corner of the mouth. It's just that this smile hasn't appeared for long. I saw that the soles of this man's feet directly turned into blade shapes, just like skates, sliding forward quickly. At the same time, his palms and fingers turned into blades, and then he rushed towards the 4 people in front of him. Several sword lights appeared. All I heard was a man murmuring, "Mo dust-cutting blade!" The next second, the smiles on the faces of everyone in the clawed duck forest disappeared. They only felt pain in their bodies. The intense pain rushes straight to the brain. They slowly looked at their chests. All I saw was a particularly deep wound on my chest. The most important thing is that everyone seems to have one. Blood suddenly flowed out of his chest. In an instant, the ground was dyed red. Darkness gradually enveloped their vision. Bang, 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 bang. The sound of 4 falling to the ground in a row sounded in Kosha's ears. Kosha looked at the scene in front of him in shock, unable to recover for a long time. Who are you? A person who wants to liberate Alabasta. Chief, we believe that under your leadership, Alabasta will be able to move towards a more prosperous age. But you can. The man looked at Kosha seriously and said, "If you can't do it, then no one in this world will be able to do it." Hearing the man's words, Kosha felt an extra burden on his shoulders. Nodding heavily, Kosha promised the man, "If I can, I will definitely lead Alabasta to a better future." As Kosha finished speaking, he raised his arms high. He said to the numerous rebels, "Complete the occupation of the palace as quickly as possible. We must take back our rainwater. Come on. We must let Cobra know how powerful we are. Let him continue to use dancing powder regardless of our ideas. Take him off the throne." Watching Kosha continue to charge forward, the man snorted coldly, "You are really stupid." As the words fell, the figure of this man jumped in the crowd. He completely disappeared into the sea of people. This man is Crocodile's subordinate, codenamed Mr. One, and his real name is Daz Bones. He is the one with the ability to cut fruits, the Blade Man. Can turn any part of the body into a blade. This is also the ability he used just now. As Daz Bones disappeared, he came to a corner. He took out a phone bug and immediately said to Crocodile, "Mission accomplished." Yes, this is just the task assigned to him by Crocodile. Let Kosha force Cobra as much as possible. Then he appears at the end and becomes the king of this country with a reputation that far exceeds that of Kosha. It's just that he really thinks too highly of Kosha. Even after completely wiping out the clawed duck troops, the strength of Kosha's rebels is really too weak. They are just refugees from other areas. His physical strength is simply not too bad. Even due to year-round lack of water, their bodies simply cannot withstand a large amount of training. This also leads to the fact that each of them is weak. Compared with those King's Guards who have undergone orthodox training, they are not too weak. With the death of the clawed duck troops, the news reached Bell's ears. Bell immediately arranged for other elite escorts to take their place. For a time, neither Kosa's rebel army nor the King's army led by Bell were able to do anything to the other. After all, there are too many rebels. As time goes by, most people have consumed a lot of physical energy. It is simply not enough to support them and continue to fight. Thinking of this, Kosha immediately decided to take a break and fight again the next day. As Kosha left, Cobra was also very disappointed and returned to the depths of the palace. After Bell also counted the damage, he came to Cobra and said to Cobra, "Your Majesty, if we don't have support anymore, there is nothing we can do. How long can we hold on?" Cobra looked at Bell in front of him and said to Bell, "What happened? The King's army should not be so weak. According to the news I got, it seems that a mysterious person appeared. They were very powerful and easily killed our guards. The number of our elite guards suddenly dropped sharply." After hearing Bell's words, Cobra's heart sank. It must be Crocodile who took action. Cobra felt himself burning with anger. Thinking of Crocodile being a heroic existence in the eyes of ordinary people, Cobra was very helpless. He wants to reveal Crocodile's true face. But there is no way at all. He could even imagine if he really told the truth to those civilians. They will only riot even more. It would be great if Crocodile's true face could be revealed to the public, Cobra murmured in the palace. But as Cobra's words fell, I saw yellow sand suddenly emerging from the palace. The yellow sand continued to surge, and finally a figure emerged. After Bell saw this scene, his pupils shrank suddenly. He immediately took a defensive posture to protect Cobra. At this time, Cobra also stood up directly and looked at the figure in front of him. Cobra said loudly, "Crocodile, you actually came here. How on earth did you get in?" "How did I get in? I'm a sandman who ate Logia's sand fruit. With the current palace guards, it's impossible to detect me." After Crocodile finished speaking, he raised his head slightly. "I originally thought that guy Kosa would rush up directly and completely occupy the palace. Who would have thought that he would withdraw directly at night? It's my fault. He also asked people to help him kill most of the elite troops. I didn't expect this guy to disappoint me so much. What on earth do you want?" Bell looked at Crocodile in front of him very warily, and it could be said that he was very wary of Crocodile's movements. As long as Crocodile makes the slightest move, he will launch an all-out attack. But for Crocodile, Bell's strength was still too weak after all. "Do you think you can defeat me with just your strength?" As Crocodile finished speaking, Crocodile's body suddenly became elemental. A large amount of yellow sand filled the palace at this time. I saw the poisonous hook on Crocodile's arm, rushing towards Bell at this moment. "This is covered with deadly toxins. If you touch it, you will die. You'd better pray hard and don't touch it yourself." Crocodile had a smile on his face, as if he didn't care at all about Bell's life or death. When Cobra saw this, he quickly shouted, "Bell! Be careful!" It's just that the strength gap between Crocodile and Bell is still a little bit behind after all. In the blink of an eye, Crocodile's scorpion poison needle had arrived in front of Bell. At the critical moment, Bell's fruit power was activated, and his wings flapped violently. At this time, a strong wind surged in the palace. Almost wiping his clothes, Bell hugged Cobra and escaped from Crocodile's attack range. "The speed is pretty good, but so what? You know, I'm just playing with you now." As Crocodile finished speaking, Crocodile took back his scorpion venom needle. At the same time, a sandstorm seemed to form in the palm of my hand. "Shalon!" Crocodile used the power of the sand fruit to form a sandstorm in his palm. Along with Crocodile, he pushed the sandstorm out. I saw wind and sand surging in the palace. Bell and Cobra were lost in the sand almost in the blink of an eye. For the ignorant Bell, losing your eyes means losing the possibility of continuing to fight. Next second, Crocodile once again flew his scorpion poison needle towards Bell. It hit Bell directly in the chest. The toxin invaded Bell's body in the blink of an eye. Pfft! Bell spit out a large mouthful of blood directly from his mouth. Then he fell to the ground. I don't know if he was unconscious or if his life was just taken away. The wind and sand gradually dissipated in the palace. Cobra was finally able to open his eyes and look at what was happening in front of him. The first thing he saw was Bell lying on the ground, not knowing whether to live or die. Crocodile, who was gradually gathering his elemental form, slowly moved closer to Cobra at this time. "Cobra, I know you are a good king, but in this world, the weak eat the strong. Without strong strength, it is impossible to live for too long. If you want to survive, tell me the location of Pluton. About the secret you have been guarding since ancient times." Crocodile came to Cobra, grabbed Cobra from the ground, and said to Cobra. Cobra looked at Crocodile in front of him. "I will never tell you Pluton's location." In fact, even Cobra himself was not sure what was carved on that tombstone. But after hearing Crocodile's words, Cobra directly refused. "It doesn't matter, as long as you are still alive. I will find a way to find the location," Crocodile said to Cobra. Cobra's heart became heavier and heavier. "What on earth do you want to do?" "You don't want to do anything. Your life is still useful now. When the time comes, I will use your daughter's life to threaten you. I think she will definitely come over. If I remember correctly, she is currently in Whiskey Mountain. Is it possible that you already know her identity? Cobra's pupils shrank suddenly. In this case, if Vivi really came over, wouldn't she be falling into a trap? Thinking of this, Cobra felt very desperate. At this moment, a man dressed very funny walked in from outside. Mr. Two, you are finally here! Crocodile didn't need to think about it, but he knew who was coming in at this time. Phone Clay looked at Crocodile in front of him and said immediately, "It's not because it can't be noticed by others, so the slave family came a little later. Then I'll leave it to you for tomorrow." As Crocodile finished speaking, I saw Phone Clay touching his face with his right hand. The next second, he turned into Cobra. And after Cobra saw Phone Clay's ability, it was reflected instantly. During this period, they always said they saw him. What was going on? So it's you! What is your ability? Cobra was shocked. In response, Phone Clay used Cobra's voice and expression to say to Cobra, "The slave family is a person with the ability to eat the paramecia fruit, the imitation fruit, and is an imitator. The masterpieces during this period are exactly what the slave family's ability is." 4. After hearing Phone Clay's words, although Cobra was very angry, he still felt a strong sense of powerlessness. This feeling made Cobra despair. The palace has been invaded. He has even been choked by Crocodile. Alabasta is gradually entering the darkest time in history. How on earth can you spare the people of Alabasta? Cobra shouted loudly to Crocodile in front of him. But apart from this method, he had no other option at all. You are no longer of much use. Just watch the rest from here. Watch how this country completely becomes my tool under my control. As Crocodile finished speaking, Crocodile used his fruit ability to roll up two sharp-looking things in the distance. Then it stabbed Cobra's arms. I saw that Cobra's entire body was pressed against the wall in a very embarrassed manner. The arms drooped like a right angle. The intense pain made Cobra exhale in pain. Blood ran down the walls. But there was still no way to erase the tenacity in Cobra's eyes. In a blink of an eye, time came to the early morning of the next day. After all, Kosha is just an ordinary person. Because of chance, I stood in the position of commander. If it were anyone else, they would have carried out a sneak attack last night. And he relies on numbers. Thinking that they had a large number, they chose to let everyone rest for one night, and start the war the next day. Just like that, when the sky was still slightly cool, Kosha gathered a large number of rebels and rushed towards the palace. This time, Kosha's attack was very easy. Almost living up to his efforts, he made it all the way to the palace. And in the palace, Kosha also saw Cobra. However, he didn't know that the Cobra in front of him was dressed up by someone else. He came to Cobra and said to Cobra, "I'm here again." Kosha clasped his hands tightly, and then said to Cobra in front of him. The real Cobra was diagonally behind a screen, listening to everything that was happening in front of him. He wanted action, wanted Kosha to find him. But with his body restrained and his mouth filled with sand, he couldn't make a sound at all. Even breathing is very painful. "Yeah, you're here again." At this time, Phone Clay, pretending to be Cobra, also said to Kosha at this time. Without waiting for Kosha to say anything, Cobra added, "I sincerely apologize to you for what I have done. I know that I cannot govern this country well with my ability, so I am here." At that time, a decision was made. After a pause, Cobra continued, "That is to hand over this country to Crocodile, one of the Shichibukai. I believe that under his wise leadership, this country will become even better." Kosha opened his mouth, wanting to say something. Because what happened before him was completely contrary to his imagination. Ever since I heard that man's words yesterday, Kosha felt that only outstanding people like him in this country could make this country a better place. But he didn't wait for Kosha to say anything. I saw a large amount of yellow sand suddenly appearing in the palace. The yellow sand continued to gather, finally forming the figure of Crocodile. Crocodile looked at the people in front of him and announced loudly, I have been trying to persuade the king to make this decision for a long time, but. Before Crocodile could finish speaking, suddenly, a terrifying momentum like a ferocious beast came from the distance. I saw a man in a cloak falling from the sky. Not only that, he also has a beauty in his arms. And this beauty is surprisingly the princess of Alabasta Vivi. Since the last time, I had a call with Cobra through the phone bug. Roja took Vivi, activated the 8 Gates armor formation, and flew towards Alabasta crazily. Relying on the terrifying speed of the 8 Gates armor formation, Roja used moonwalk in the air and arrived at Alabasta in just 1 day. And Vivi also slept in Luoya's arms for a long time. When he arrived at this place, Roja woke Vivi up from her sleep. Not long after Vivi opened her eyes, she happened to see the scene in front of her. When Roja first came here, he realized what was going on. Looks like we came just in time, Roja said in a low voice to everyone present. Everyone present turned their attention to Roja. Especially Kosha. He is a little angry now. Who are you? Roja didn't want to answer Kosha's question at all. Instead, he looked at Crocodile in front of him and said in a deep voice, Crocodile, I didn't expect you to play such a game of chess. Although it looks pretty good, it's very helpless that now I'm here. Here it has nothing to do with you anymore. As Roja's words fell, Roja's arms were raised. In the blink of an eye, a solid sword energy appeared in everyone's eyes. This sword energy is very fast. Almost in the blink of an eye, he arrived at the screen. The screen was cut in half. It fell to the ground and made a sound. But now, what shocked everyone even more was what was behind that screen. There is actually a king? Kosha and the rebels behind him were stunned when they saw this scene. They didn't expect that they would see this happen. What exactly is going on? Why are there 2 kings? Roja relied on his peak medical skills to determine the extent of Cobra's injuries in just 1 glance. Shave. The figure is fleeting. Roja came to Cobra. The palm is stretched out, like an afterimage. Luoya pulled out all the cone-shaped sharp objects on his arm, and at the same time, Luoya also performed treatment to stop the bleeding. Wait here for a moment, don't move, I'll handle the rest. Cobra held up his eyes and looked at Roja in front of him, and his heart became even heavier. He knew the man in front of him. The leader of the morning and night birds, Zero. If it were normal, if Zero appeared here, although Cobra would be shocked, he would not feel palpitations. However, he came with his daughter Vivi. This made him couldn't help but think about it more. However, his body is too weak now, and there is no way he can force himself to stand up. This made Cobra feel very helpless. Seeing his father in such a miserable state, Vivi was heartbroken. Immediately he quickly came to Cobra, and the tears suddenly left his eyes uncontrollably. Time seemed to freeze at this moment. Crocodile next to him also looked a little wary when he saw this scene in front of him. For a time, the palace seemed to be frozen. Kosha looked at the 2 identical kings in front of him. He woke up from his daydream in an instant. He said to Vivi, Vivi, what on earth happened? Vivi heard Kosha's voice, and strong resentment flashed in her eyes. You people have absolutely no idea of my father's hard work. You only know the immediate interests, and have not discovered at all that this is all Crocodile's conspiracy. After Vivi finished saying these words, she turned directly to look at Kosha. He said to Kusha, Kusha, especially you, I thought you would be aware of all this, but I didn't expect that you would actually do such a thing. Vivi stood up, with countless heaviness in her eyes, and said to everyone, Do you think you are powerful? Do you think you are the heroes who save the people? No! You are all wrong! You are just a tool, Crocodile's tool. When Vivi's last words fell, Vivi looked at Crocodile. Crocodile looked at Vivi in front of him, laughed out loud immediately, then looked at Vivi with extremely gloomy eyes, and said to Vivi, I didn't expect you would actually find this guy Ling. If possible, I should just kill you. Crocodile said to Vivi, and then looked at Zero next to him, which is Roja. Crocodile was very wary of any moves by Roya, because he understands how terrifying Zero's strength is. But he is Crocodile. But those who have the courage to challenge the white beard, not to mention the leader of the morning and night birds in front of me, seeing that he is about to control this country, how could he give up like this? Therefore, Crocodile said to Roja, Zero, I don't know what kind of deal you made with her, but what I want to say is that no matter what your direct deal is, as long as I have control over it, after this country, I can also help you accomplish your goals. Looking at Crocodile in front of him, the corners of Roja's mouth hidden under the cloak raised slightly. Oh really? Roja's deep voice echoed in the palace. This made Vivi feel her heart sinking. She came here, but she has already given everything. If Roja betrays him, then they can really be said to be desperate. Lord Leader, as long as you are willing to quell this war, I agree not only to all the previous conditions. I am even willing to follow you, Lord Leader, forever. Join the Morning and Evening Bird Organization and accept the protection of the Morning and Evening Bird Organization. Become the Morning and Evening Bird, serve the country. Hearing Vivi's words, Roja waved his hand casually. Don't worry, I still have this credit. Besides, isn't it just a Shichibukai? I can defeat him later. That means there is no room for negotiation? Crocodile said to Roja, but the next second, Crocodile directly used elemental transformation, separated his scorpion poison needle at extremely fast speed, and rushed towards Roja. I saw purple light shining on the golden hook, making people look a little unbearable. But for this kind of petty attack, Roja didn't pay attention at all. I saw Roja stretching out his hand, under the shocked gaze of everyone. Under the gaze of everyone, Roja directly used armament hockey. The extremely rich domineering energy wrapped around Roja's arm at this moment. The next second, Roja clung directly to the scorpion poison needle. Bang! The scorpion poison needle was caught and exploded by Luo Ye. The terrifying power shocked everyone present. Crocodile's pupils also shrank suddenly, and he subconsciously said, How is this possible? Nothing is impossible. It only means that as Shichibukai, you are too weak. After hearing Roja's words, Crocodile curled his lips disdainfully. Even if you explode my scorpion poison needle, so what? My best ability is not poison. It's sand. As Crocodile finished speaking, Crocodile shouted again. Baroque Chinese society! Among the crowd, dozens of figures suddenly ran out. Among these figures, the first one to bear the brunt is Des Bones, who appeared yesterday. Followed by Zala, Mr. 3, Golden Week, Mr. 4, Merry Christmas, Mr. 5, Valentine's Day. These people are all Crocodile's men. Since just now, he has been hiding among the rebels. Following Crocodile's order, he ran directly out from the rebel army. At this time, Foam Clay, who became the king, also directly released his transformation and attacked Roja. Crocodile thought very simply, let these people consume Baroja's physical strength first. Then he attacks. However, Crocodile's idea, although very beautiful, is still too taken for granted after all. Face the attack of these people. Roja just performed slow seals with both hands. Wood style, the birth of the wood world. Following Roja's hands, he slapped it on the ground. A large number of rhizomes and vines sprouted directly from the palace and began to grow wantonly. The ground is cracked. A large amount of vitality makes these rhizomes directly attached to the wall. In just a few moments, the palace located in the desert was wrapped in green vegetation. And those who attacked Roja were imprisoned by these roots. Can't move at all. In the distance, a large number of residents and rebels, or other people, saw this scene. The whole person was stunned. What's happening here? Isn't there a battle going on there? How come so many plants suddenly appear? You can hear the tone of these people, and there is even a little happiness in their tone. There is no way, as they live in the desert. Apart from cacti, I didn't see many green plants. And after the sudden growth of vegetation in front of them caught their eyes, they were thinking about it. If this plant can grow so fast, can it be planted in the desert? In this way, the environment can be improved and it will rain more often. You must know that rainwater is a top priority for a desert country. After all, this war was caused by rain. Crocodile looked at the scene in front of him and felt very shocked. He had never even heard of such a terrifying power. But it appeared in front of him. This surprised Crocodile. Let's not waste any more time. It's better to come to an end quickly. As Roha's words fell, Roha whispered softly. Everything in the forest is turned into ashes, Ryujin Jakka. Flames rose, burning the air. Let the air become a little unreal. The flames gradually condensed and finally formed a simple samurai sword. This katana is none other than Ryujin Jakka. Feeling the huge pressure, Crocodile felt his heart suddenly sink. Without any hesitation, Crocodile directly transformed into an element and ran outside. But this is not because Crocodile is afraid, but that Crocodile intends to go outside. Go fight in the desert. Because only when he reaches the desert can he completely become his home court. Naturally, Roha didn't intercept. Anyway, he didn't pay attention to Crocodile's strength at all. The power of the spell activates. Roha also flew outside. As for everyone else, except Vivi and Cobra, the rest of the people have already been completely imprisoned by the roots of deep forest creation. Can't move at all. In this regard, they could only watch helplessly. After Crocodile, who turned into yellow sand, came to the desert, his confidence increased a lot. 0. I'll give you another chance. You can think about it carefully. As long as the two of us work together, the entire sea will be ours. Crocodile's words drifted into Roha's ears. Luoya just said lightly, the sea will be mine alone in the future. As for you, just watch me complete all this from below. So, what if I say that there is Pluton in this place? Crocodile played his most important card. Pluton? Do you think I will need this kind of thing? And if I really need Pluton, wouldn't it be better if I just go to the Water City and get the design drawings? Do I still need you? What? The Water City has Pluton's design. Crocodile was stunned on the spot. He never knew that Pluton's design drawings actually existed in the Water City. If he had known it earlier, why would he have spent so long planning Alabasta? Wouldn't it be enough to go directly to the Water City to find the design drawings? Powerful resentment emerged in Crocodile's heart at this time. Immediately, he raised his arm high, and a miniature sandstorm appeared in his palm. Only Crocodile was heard shouting, Erosion of Reincarnation! This is a large-scale attack unique to the Logia fruit. As soon as Crocodile's right hand touches the ground, the fruit's ability is activated instantly. The ground, which was already a desert, became even more dry and cracked at this time. Even the cacti in the desert were directly sucked away the water at this time. And it started to spread around. This is a very terrifying power. After it is activated, it has the terrifying power to pulverize even rocks into sand. If used next to a building, it will sink directly due to gradual desertification. The ground seemed to have died, turning into a dry and cracked wasteland. In response, Roha directly used the power of the spell to float in the sky. Nothing happened at all. But at this moment, Crocodile's moves changed and I saw Crocodile's hands pulled out directly from the ground at this time. Crocodile's hands were already turning into large sand blades. Desert Diamond Sword! As Crocodile's words fell, all the sand absorbed by the erosion reincarnation was turned into his own power by Crocodile at this time. With a huge sand blade, he attacked Roha in the sky. This was almost Crocodile's full blow. Because Crocodile knew that if he didn't use his full strength, he would easily fall into passivity. That's right, as a man who dares to challenge Whitebeard, Crocodile feels that his strength is not inferior to Roya. He is so confident. However, when Luoya faced the Desert Diamond Sword, he didn't feel the slightest disturbance in his heart. Even somewhat to laugh. I saw that Roha slowly closed his eyes, and then opened them suddenly. The perfect power of the Supreme Swordsman was gathered on Ryujin Jakka's blade at this moment. The flames are also gathering at this moment. The next second, there was a blazing flame, and countless heavenly fires suddenly bloomed in the air. Roja's whole body was bathed in monstrous flames. Like a god in flames. Flames fell from the sky like lotus flowers. I saw Roja in the sky, holding the hilt of the sword tightly and slashing from top to bottom. The simple blade seemed to cut through the air directly at this time. There is even more terrifying spiritual pressure inside. At this time, the friction between the air and the blade made an explosion sound. Like a thunder. Boom! Torch! As Roja's words fell, Crocodile only saw a tornado of flames forming in the sky. The tornado flames were heading towards him quickly. There seems to be countless swords and swords inside. Crocodile's pupils shrank suddenly. Immediately he mobilized more sand again, trying to break through Roja's attack. I saw that the Desert Diamond sword had doubled in size at this time. It looks quite scary. Boom! The heat of the sun-like flame collided with the sand at this time. I saw that the sand first turned into glass, and then was directly vaporized. In such a terrifying high temperature, there is no way to defeat Roja's flames. At this moment, all the Desert Diamond swords were swallowed up by Roja's slashes and turned into nutrients, making the flames expand even more. Boom, boom, boom. I saw that the sand in other directions turned into shining glass in an instant after contacting the remaining heat of the firestorm. But only Crocodile can feel this terrifying momentum. TSK, TSK, TSK. Flame Tornado Song Ming, at this time, completely swallowed Crocodile in it. I saw that the ground became more and more messy, and the flame tornado swept through countless sands, turning them into glass and falling from the sky. Like countless stars, floating from the sky. A large number of people in Alabasta were obviously aware of this scene at this time. They were all stunned on the spot. They have never seen this scene before. I just feel the urge to kneel down and worship. This feeling even made them feel that there was a kind of overbearing aura that was constantly eroding their minds. That is to say, the distance is very far. Otherwise, these people would have fainted directly under the domineering spiritual pressure that Roja unconsciously leaked, just like conquerors. Crocodile wants to become elemental, but this will do more harm to him. As the tornado flames gradually dissipated in the air, Crocodile's figure also caught Roja's eyes. Crocodile was seen lying on the crystallized ground covered in charred black. The whole person takes less air in and out more. As a Shichibukai, you plan to steal the country. I have to say that your courage is pretty good, but you can end it here. Crocodile was lying on the ground in a big shape, looking up at Roya wearing a cloak. He wanted to laugh, but he only spat out a mouth full of blood, which was black and full of anxiety. But even so, Crocodile still lives tenaciously. It is enough to show that Crocodile's strength is definitely not as simple as what he just saw. But what is the reason why Crocodile is unable to use his full strength? This is not something Roja can guess. I placed a bomb in the center of the Alabasta capital. The power of the bomb can even easily knock down the entire city. If you want to know the location, just let me go. After I am sure it is completely safe, I will the location tells you, otherwise when the time comes, the entire city will be annihilated, and you will not be able to continue to control this country. When Crocodile said this, he felt extremely confident. He didn't expect that his strength was so different from Roja's. But because of this, he was still very excited to be able to make Roja surrender to him in this way. However, Roja did not accept Crocodile's threat. He turned to look at the bell tower in the distance, and said to Crocodile, "If I guessed correctly, you should have put the bomb on the bell tower, right?" As Roja's words fell, Crocodile's eyes suddenly shrank. Roja was right, but because of this, he couldn't show even a trace of panic. Immediately, Crocodile endured the pain and said to Roja, "You are really naive. Do you think I would put a bomb in that kind of place?" "Of course, I believe it," Roja whispered to Crocodile, and then he said, "Crocodile, today next year, if I can think of you, I will give you a stick of incense." As Roja's words fell, Roja controlled the spell and directly made all the crystallized sand float. Then he fell suddenly and hit Crocodile hard. Because his physical strength was already resisting and completely exhausted when the flame tornado hit, Crocodile had no way to elementalize. He could only watch helplessly as the sky full of crystallized sand fell on him. Boom! The deafening sound sounded again. Crocodile's figure has completely disappeared into the desert. Crocodile, one of the Shichibukai, died. Just at this moment, the top wooden structure of the bell tower in the distance slowly opened. Many people looked over when they noticed this scene. There is a huge bomb inside. The bomb was pushed out from the bell tower. But Roha didn't panic at all. The corners of his mouth raised slightly. The Ryujin Jakka in his hand reversed the blade, and then swung the sword from bottom to top. In an instant, flames condensed near the bell tower. Many people nearby were aware of the scene in front of them. Subconsciously, he stayed away from the bell tower. At this moment, a large number of sparks suddenly condensed in the air. The sparks seemed to ignite the air directly. Then wrap the bell tower. Boom! I saw the flames igniting the bomb, and the deafening sound resounded in everyone's ears at this time. The sound like thunder completely frightened the people. What's happening here? There seems to be a bomb inside the bell tower? I don't know, but it looks like we are saved. Roha's control of flames can be said to be no less than any of his abilities. Powerful flame control can instantly ignite the bomb and make it explode. But when the bomb exploded, it was assimilated by Roya's flames. There is simply no way to cause particularly great harm. Instead, it shot straight into the sky. The sky was originally endless. At this time, the most beautiful flame bloomed. After Roha took care of this, he returned directly to the palace. The roots of those branches were still restraining those people, making it impossible for them to move at all. After returning to the palace, the first thing Roha did was to use his peak medical skills to cure King Cobra. At least it won't leave any hidden wounds. Immediately afterwards, Roha found Bel's body in a flower bush outside the palace. I have to say that he is worthy of being a user with animal-type fruit abilities, just like a little strong one. Even when Roha found Bel, his internal organs and even his entire body were already invaded by toxins. But even so, he still did not die, lingering there until he was about to enter the gate of hell. Pulled back by Roya. However, although Roha rescued Bel, Bel's strength and physique were directly reduced significantly. There is nothing we can do about it. After all, we have been infected with toxins for a whole day. After finishing these, Roha looked at Kosha and others. Vivi, what do you think is the best way to deal with these people? Roha came to Vivi and said to Vivi. Vivi looked at Kosha in front of her resentfully. If it weren't for Kosha, her father would not have suffered such humiliation and harm. Kill them all! Kill everyone who joins the rebel army! Hearing Vivi's words, the corners of Roha's mouth raised slightly. That's the right thing to do. In this sea, just have a warm heart for the people you trust, and forget about the rest. As Roha's words fell, these roots began to be tightly bound under Roha's control. Kosha felt as if his body was about to be broken by ribs. When Cobra saw this scene, he quickly said in his hoarse voice, No, it can't be like this. This is all my fault. If I had discovered it earlier, I wouldn't have. Father, this is not your fault. After all, we are too soft-hearted. We cannot be soft-hearted in this sea. Vivi agreed with Roha's words very much and quoted Roha's words directly. After all, during this period of time, Vivi has seen a lot of intrigues and various things that framed each other. Therefore, Vivi has seen more of such dark things on the sea than even King Cobra. At this time, Roha did not give Cobra any say. He wants Vivi to be in power. Therefore, I only saw those people headed by Kosha, who were immediately bound to death by Luoya's wooden realm. This extremely terrifying ability made Cobra feel a tremor in his heart. I felt extremely old for a moment. At this time, Roha also said to Cobra, My lord, now that you are old, it is time to give up the throne. At this time, Cobra looked at Vivi next to him. What can he do? I am a fisherman and a fisherman. He simply had no way of speaking his mind. There is no other way but to do this. After getting these things done, Roha immediately asked Vivi to announce that she would inherit the throne of Cobra. At the same time, it was also directly announced that anyone who had participated in the rebel army before would be directly sentenced to death. People are very disgusted with this kind of thing. But Roja also has other plans to divert people's attention. Above the palace, Vivi stood at the highest point of the palace. He leaned over and looked at the many people in front of him. Vivi looked at Roja behind her worriedly, and said to Roja, "Master Leader, is there really no problem? Don't worry, just leave this kind of thing to me." After receiving Roja's affirmation, Vivi nodded, and then used a loudspeaker to speak official words to many people, but in the end, Vivi lowered her voice. He immediately shouted to many people, "But now we have awakened and have been protected by the Morning and Night Bird Organization. From now on, the Morning and Night Bird Organization will be the patron saint of our country, guarding the good weather of our country." As Vivi's words fell, Roya's figure suddenly appeared in the sky above many people. Roya, wearing a cloak, attracted everyone's attention. I saw Roya opening his arms, taking a deep breath in the sky, and then said in a deep voice, "Wood style, deep forest creation." As Roja's words fell, the phantoms that had been distributed nearby had been uniformly used at this time. Wood style, deep forest creation. A large amount of vitality was immersed in the ground at this time. Countless rhizomes sprouted at this time. Continuous growth. Even under Roja's special control, there were still many roads left. These roads lead to Alabasta, other territories. This is like a miraculous ability. Many people were stunned. At this time, Roja said to the system in his heart, "The system uses the weather card." Ding! Congratulations to host for successfully using the weather card. As the system's voice fell, dark clouds suddenly began to gather in the sky. The dark clouds stretched for thousands of miles. All the land in Alabasta was directly shrouded under dark clouds. The next second, the downpour caught everyone's eyes. Feeling the chill on their bodies, the people were completely excited. Unprecedented heavy rainfall in Alabasta. At this time, the people were completely excited. They have never felt the feeling of rain. As a country that is extremely short of water, their desire for water is something that no other country can feel. It rained heavily. The crowd cheered. They kept shouting the name of Morning and Evening Bird. This moment, in their hearts, it was the true coming of gods into the world. Alabasta, a country that has always lived in the desert, was finally revitalized by Roja at this time. Not only has it been revitalized, but most importantly, Morning and Night Bird has become an organization that countless people yearn for. If there are monks here, they should be able to understand what Roja is doing. He is building the faith of these people. When something becomes a belief, then in this person's heart, Roja will become a real god. As these groups continue to expand, then one day, Roja will be able to change the world through his words. Roya is a very cautious person. Before any information about the celestial dragon's secret weapon, Uranus, was revealed, Roja would only continue to enhance his strength. This is why he has to continue to make arrangements. Just for this kind of thing. And after finishing Alabasta, Noah's Ark also came to Alabasta at this time. Roya and Kuina will stay in this country temporarily during this period, in order to completely consolidate it. Of course, Roja would not waste so much time. Therefore, he directly transformed his body into the clone in the kingdom of Bade Lila. The kingdom of Badalila. Roya, who had disguised his phantom as Rila 13, was sitting on the throne, looking down at the minister in front of him. Your Majesty, during this period, the plan you ordered is being implemented step by step and has received a very good response. Your Majesty, your reputation among the people has reached an unprecedented peak, even directly surpassing the previous king. Your Majesty, I believe that under your leadership, our kingdom of Badalila will become extremely powerful. Listening to the ministers below, they continued to advocate his approach. But in my heart, I was very disdainful. Although these methods are very useful, if you do not have the strength to deter other countries, you will still be bullied. So when he thought of this, Roja said to the ministers in front of him, Is there any place in the hinterland of the kingdom that is relatively empty? Report to your lord, there is a square next to the garden. There is nothing there, but I don't know, lord, what do you want to do? Make something that makes the country stronger. As Roha's words fell, Roha walked down from the throne. Then the minister followed Roha and came to the square. I saw Roha opening his arms, and then said to the system, System, take out the previous machinery factory for me. Place it in the square in front. As Roha's words fell, a huge machinery factory appeared out of thin air in front of the square. The sci-fi feeling made the other ministers freeze in place. They didn't believe at all that this was something that Roha, no, to be precise, Lyra 13 could do. Roha had no explanation for this. Instead, he directly asked people to take out various materials from the treasury, and then threw these materials inside. I saw the mechanical factory running continuously at this time, and in just a few moments, a mechanical soldier was created. The mechanical soldiers look relatively advanced. No different from human beings. It just feels like metal, giving people an uncanny valley effect. But the system said that this can be upgraded. At this stage, only this kind of ordinary mechanical metal soldiers can be produced. But after upgrading, Roha plans to build a peace machine that resembles a bear. Before the ministers could react, Roha, who they called Lyra 13, walked into the machinery factory and began to make continuous changes inside. These ministers expressed that they were completely shocked. Is this still my own king? Isn't this too exaggerated? It feels like the king is omnipotent. This feeling gives people a very strange feeling. Obviously before, Lyra 13 gave people the impression that he was very violent and only liked to squeeze people. But now, since that happened, they only felt that their king had undergone earth-shaking changes. This feeling surprised them. After a while, Luoya walked out of the machinery factory. Although he is not tired at all, as an ordinary person, Lyra 13 will definitely sweat at this time. Therefore, under Roha's control, a lot of sweat was shed. After this transformation, the highest standard mechanic soldiers that the machinery factory can produce can basically reach the peace machine developed by Marine in the near future. In response, Luoya immediately asked people to throw a large amount of materials into the machinery factory. The machine shop began to operate. After a while, a large advanced robot with a large number of mechanical operations came out. Just as the machinery factory was running continuously, a soldier suddenly rushed over. He immediately knelt in front of Roha and said to Roha, Your Majesty King! It's not good! Those guys from the Revolutionary Army are back! Hearing the soldier's words, Roha frowned slightly. But it soon stretched out. I didn't expect that those guys from the Revolutionary Army would make a comeback at this time. Do they think we can slaughter them at will without the help of Marine? In this case, let them try. How powerful our mechanical army is! As Roya's words fell, Roha directly ordered to these machines, Go to the battlefield immediately and prepare for defensive counterattack. These mechanical soldiers immediately walked outside. They come out with a system that distinguishes between friend and foe, and can identify who is the attacker and what is one of their own. When these mechanical soldiers appeared on the battlefield, the Revolutionary Army on the opposite side was stunned. What is this? What is this? Why haven't we seen it before when we fought? Whatever it is, just do it and it's done. In order to liberate this country and let the people here live a happy life, go for it. At this time, the Revolutionary Army made a comeback. Only this time, those people will no longer greet these people at the gate of opening. Because they know that these people in front of them will not bring them anything after taking the things. It will only make them poorer. Instead of being like their king, he always thinks about them. This is what they most want to see. So this time, these people spontaneously went out to cheer for the soldiers of their country. However, what these people did not expect was this. This time, those who came over were not ordinary soldiers. And they are all mechanical soldiers. These soldiers seem to be relatively flexible when facing ordinary people in the Revolutionary Army. It is simply a massacre-level existence. The dragon at the rear was also lost in thought at this time. He never thought that his retaliate would be so useless. The most important thing is that he has no idea what is going on with the appearance of these mechanical soldiers. Sob, go over and try them out and see how they perform. Yes. After receiving Dragon's order, Sabo immediately left from behind and rushed towards the mechanical soldiers. Regarding these mechanical soldiers, Long said that he was still very curious. If he could know how these soldiers appeared, he could save a lot of money when attacking cities and territories. These funds can be used in other places. Sabo soon arrived on the battlefield. At this time, the mess on the battlefield has not yet been completely cleaned up. Sabo came to the battlefield and came directly in front of an ordinary mechanical soldier. The palm of my hand showed dragon claws, and at this time, I grabbed it directly. Bang! Under the domineering influence of Sabo's armed force, the mechanical soldiers turned directly into scrap metal. But at this moment, Sabo only felt that what he saw was domineering and gave him a very strong warning. Without any hesitation, Sabo stepped back. I saw a laser flashing in his position. Boom! Lasers exploded. I saw a huge explosion happening where Sabo was standing before. The roar of the explosion sounded in Sabo's ears. Debris on the ground scratched Sabo's cheek at this time. A trail of blood left Sabo's cheek. Okay, so strong! Sabo was a little shocked. If he had been hit by this laser just now, even he would have been prepared. But it can also get hurt. This shocked Sabo a little. What kind of technology is this that can have such power? When Sabo turned around and looked at the huge machine that shot out lasers, his pupils shrank suddenly. What he didn't expect was that this machine was actually so big. This was far beyond his imagination. Now that you appear in front of me, let me see your strength. Sabo looked at the robot in front of him and narrowed his eyes, showing that he was very serious. At this time, he is full of firepower. At this moment, Sabo's legs were slightly bent, and then he rushed out. The ground cracked instantly. The dragon claws gathered in his hands, and then they suddenly grabbed at the large robot. That large robot looks like a strong man. It just glows with a metallic luster and has a laser transmitter in its palm. At the same time, the condensation speed of this laser transmitter is still very fast. Just when Sabo rushed towards him, the laser had successfully condensed. Light condensed in the robot's hands. Whoosh! A voice. Sabo, who was armed and domineering with his hands wrapped around him, directly hit the laser at this time. The laser exploded at this time. But this does not affect Sabo's offense. Smoke billows. Sabo rushed out, and the clothes behind him were constantly shaking in the wind. The figure kept flashing, and Sabo quickly approached the robot. Seeing that Sabo was approaching, I saw that the chest cavity of the robot opened directly, and there were many shooting muzzles inside. Choo-choo-choo. At this time, tongues of fire were pouring out towards Sabo crazily. A large number of bullets fell on Sabo's body. But they were all blocked by Sabo. Although it hurts, I can still bear it. As Sabo finished speaking, the dragon's claws hit the robot heavily. TSK. The power of the dragon's claws directly tore the robot's iron coat into pieces. But this does not affect the operation of other parts of the robot. I saw the robot put its palm on Saab's abdomen, and then the laser flashed. The next second. Boom! A huge sound resounded in Sabo's abdomen. Dust was seen spreading out from Sabo's body. Hiss! Sabo gasped. He obviously didn't expect that the robot could do this at this time. Fortunately, at the moment when the laser was fired, he relied on his domineering perception. He had already used his armed domineering force to protect his abdomen in advance. But even so, Sabo still felt a strong burning sensation in his abdomen. As you can see, the power of robots is still very powerful. After taking a deep breath, Sabo attacked the robot again. This time, Sabo finally completely killed the upgraded robot created by Roya. Actually, this robot isn't very strong either. After Sabo got rid of the robot, he seemed to be talking to himself. But what he didn't expect was that as his words fell, I saw 10 high-level robots suddenly walking out from the distance. After seeing these advanced robots, Sabo was stunned. He really didn't expect that there were so many of these robots. You know, just for being a robot, he has to pay a big price. If the 10 robots in front of me attack at the same time, then… Just when Saab just thought of this, the robots in the distance all looked at Saab at this time. Sabo felt his heart suddenly tremble. As expected, he was so domineering that he felt that all his energy had been locked. This left Saab at a loss as to what to do. At this moment, a figure appeared in front of Sabo. This figure is clearly a dragon. The dragon's figure appeared in front of Sabo. The palms condensed the arm-domineering energy, and then directly blocked the laser attacks of these advanced robots. The dragon hidden under the cloak felt the power of the laser, and felt very hot in his eyes. If he could take this ability to make machinery into his own hands, he will be able to have a steady stream of troops. Sabo, hold on, as the saying goes, catch the thief first. Let me see directly how these things came out. As Long's words fell, his figure suddenly disappeared from the place. Shave. As the son of Garp, he was a man in Marine and experienced the darkness of Marine. Naturally, I will use Marine 6 style. The figure flashed rapidly, and in the blink of an eye, the dragon came to the palace. The palace is like a door wide open. There was no sign of anyone at all. It even makes people feel a little scary in the silence. The figure kept flashing in the palace. Long finally found something that looked like a machine factory on a square. Just as the dragon was about to look forward. At this time, Roja walked out of the corner. At this time, Roja used the power of the phantom fruit to transform himself into the appearance of Leela 13th. When Long saw Lyra 13, he was shocked. From the time he came here, he didn't notice Roja's aura at all. There wasn't even a human breath. Because of this, the moment Lyra 13 appeared, Long subconsciously took a big step back. Roja imitated the voice of Leela 13 and said to the dragon, "Isn't this the leader of the revolutionary army? Why did you come to my palace?" Roja said to the dragon in front of him. After Long saw that the king appeared in front of him, his whole heart felt relieved. Maybe it was because I saw the machine factory, so I didn't notice anyone around. As for the person in front of him, Long didn't even think that he was his opponent. Instead, he started chatting with the king in front of him. Leela 13. Your Majesty, we are here to liberate your country. According to our understanding, the people of this country are living in dire straits. If you are really a king who loves his people, then give up your resistance. After a pause, Long said, I know this may be a bit difficult for you as the king, but it doesn't matter. As long as you can hand this thing over to us, we are willing to transform you. Let you continue to be in charge of the country. Hearing Long's shameless words, the corners of Roja's mouth rose slightly. At this time, he didn't feel at all how great the dragon was. On the contrary, in Roja's view, Long is just a hypocritical character. Do you think it's possible? Roja just looked at Long quietly. His eyes were very dull. It seemed that he was not the leader of the revolutionary army at all. Just like an ordinary person. Long's heart sank slightly, and he stretched out his hands, which were covered with armed-domineering energy. I saw an extremely powerful and domineering armed force, wrapped around the dragon claws, by the dragon. Bang! Almost instantly, the dragon's figure rushed over directly. The speed is very fast. Even the dragon is still in the air, leaving behind afterimages. However, in Roja's opinion, this speed is still a little slow after all. There is no use of armament hockey. Roja took a deep breath and directly activated the 8 gates armor formation. Stretching out his palm, Roja stood there without any movement. But the palm seemed to be locked automatically, and it easily caught the dragon's fist. The dragon's armed domineering power seemed to be useless under Roja's 8 gates armor. Ah! Long couldn't hold back the pain and shouted out almost subconsciously. He only felt that his arm was grabbed by a force he had never experienced before. That huge power made Long take a breath. At this time, Long also reflected that the strength of the person in front of him was definitely not as simple as imagined. Or, aren't you the former Layla 13? Long asked Roja subconsciously. But his movements were not slow and he continued to launch a powerful attack on Roja. Dark Thunder! As Long's words fell, his legs were immediately wrapped with powerful lightning arcs. The energy on the lightning arc is very pure. Even at this time, strong winds emerged and dark clouds blocked the previously endless sky. But Roja didn't take it to heart at all. Hitora! Only a low murmur from Roja was heard. Blue steam suddenly appeared on his body. This is the advanced physical technique used by Roya after opening the 7th gate of the 8 Gates dungeon, the Gate of Wonder. I saw Roja launching a concentrated ultra-high-speed front fist attack into the air in front of him. He first compressed the air, and then spread it in one breath. The shape of the air cannon was like a tiger. Roar! The tiger seemed to be roaring. Exuding an extremely terrifying aura, it roared towards the dragon. TSK. The two collide. The fight between Dark Thunder and Day Tiger burst out with a lusty light. The light is blinding. The sound was also like thunder. Immediately afterwards, a large amount of smoke suddenly appeared in the air. Roja did not give up this opportunity to attack, activated his invisible domineering force, and directly locked onto the dragon's size. The raised fist, with the blessing of 8 Gates Dunjia, directly greeted the dragon in the face. Boom! The dragon felt a powerful force driving his body to fly far away. Ahem! Long felt that his throat was very dull and full of the smell of blood. After coughing subconsciously, he spit out a lot of blood. There are also some teeth. At this time, the wind was blowing more and more wildly. In the blink of an eye, the smoke was blown away. Long looked at the king in front of him very warily, and said to Lyra 13. You are definitely not the previous king? No, I'm still me, I just don't want to pretend anymore. Roja did not answer Long's question seriously, but continued to say to Long. Speaking of which, can you tell me what your fruit ability is? Let me see if you are thunderous, windy, or not. Is it going to rain again? Just as Luoya finished speaking, it actually started pouring rain from the sky. Feel the rain falling down your face. Roya's eyes narrowed slightly, and at this moment, Roya flashed and came to the back of the dragon in an instant. Long obviously reflected this. But it's too late. Now that you're here, you should go back with some injuries, otherwise someone will definitely say that I didn't treat you well. As Roja's words fell, Luoya immediately used Qi Xiang. This is one of the final mysteries of the 8th Gate's Gate of Death, possessing very powerful destructive power. Luoya, who came behind the dragon, punched the dragon in the abdomen. Powerful air cannons appeared in Long's perception. The speed of the air cannon continues to increase. The speed from 1 to 5 rises at a very exaggerated speed. According to Roja's previous tests, a speed of 1 alone can injure the dragon and cause great damage to the ground. Therefore, Roja's punch was directed upward. That is to say, boom! At the critical moment, Long used his strongest weapon, Haki, attached it to his abdomen. Only in this way can it be considered that Roya's attack can be resisted. However, there was still no way to change the fact that Roja's attack hit him in the abdomen. The powerful force caused the dragon's body to fly towards the sky. When the dragon reaches a certain height, the air cannon suddenly exploded. Boom! The air rippled. Explosive power was released in all directions at this moment. The crazy surging wind blew away the thick clouds covering the sky at this time. I have only seen this kind of terrifying power in Marine General Roja, but this kind of power is completely different from Roja's ability. In other words, this is not Roja. Is Lyra 13 really that powerful? Long felt that his internal organs were in a mess at this moment. The pain from the displacement of his internal organs made Long Ji feel that his brain was very blank. But even so, Long also knew that he must retreat immediately. Long never thought that he would suffer such serious injuries because of his carelessness. In other words, the Revolutionary Army will continue to delay progress because of their own injuries. And this is also what Roja thinks. As long as the progress of the Revolutionary Army slows down, then his side and the morning and evening bird side will have more time to develop. When Long had almost replied, he was ready to continue causing trouble. You will find that there is no place for them in this sea. Long's departure was within Roja's expectation. Turning his gaze not far away, Roja saw the shocked ministers. Without making any move, Roja just stood there calmly. I saw those ministers coming over and kneeling down one after another. Your Majesty, the king is mighty! He actually defeated the leader of the opposing revolutionary army with just one person. Such a powerful strength makes us marvel at the majesty of the king. Hearing the words of these ministers in front of him, Roja didn't take them to heart. Do your job well. As long as you follow me, all the glory and wealth will be just incidental. After saying this, Roja returned to his throne. He said to the ministers in front of him, What's the amount of damage to those machines? How much is it? Report to your lord, the number of ordinary machines, 1,000 units were manufactured, and a total of 327 units were damaged. The advanced mechanical soldiers manufactured 10 units, and a total of 2 units were lost. Really? Recycle them and put them back into the machine factory, and they will become brand new again. After a pause, Roja added, In addition, spread this battle to the whole world, saying that the revolutionary army was defeated by our mechanical soldiers, and we sold mechanical soldiers to various countries around the world. Roja said this and then said, Whether it is materials or money, they pay for it themselves. In addition, if the mechanical soldier is damaged, it can be returned to the factory for repair. You only need to pay a small amount of berry. Hear the words of his own king, Rila 13. The ministers below only think that if this business is really started, it will not be very profitable. It is simply a money-printing machine. Plus this time the revolutionary army really retreated. And they defeated the revolutionary army and even the leader of the revolutionary army, Long, without any foreign aid. But even with this record, they cannot tolerate disbelief. Sure enough, as Roja asked these people, the news continued to spread. In just 3 days, only 4 countries came to contact the minister. They want to buy a large number of mechanical soldiers. In this regard, Roja said very generously that as long as you give enough, he is willing to build mechanical soldiers. Marine Headquarters, Marine Land. Warring States looked at the information compiled by various intelligence departments, and his forehead was already full of #. Does this guy Lyra 13 want to provoke a war? Warring States felt a little scared. If we really follow the news from Lyra 13, plus various gossips, then this mechanical soldier is definitely very powerful. Although he did not believe that he could defeat the dragon, when fighting between countries. Definitely very powerful. Thinking of this, Sengoku picked up the phone and immediately called Roja, who had just returned to Marine Land. The call had just been connected, and before Warring States could say anything, Roja said, Sir Fleet Admiral, I want to apply for leave. I have been extremely mentally exhausted during this period. Warring States opened his mouth for a long time, sighed, and then said, How long is your vacation this time? Don't tell me it's 4 months. Yes, it's 4 months. I hope Fleet Admiral will approve it. After hearing Roja's words, Warring States finally said nothing. After all, Roja was indeed very hard during this time. In this regard, Warring States could only say, That's okay, I approve it, but if something major happens, you must return immediately. I understand, Lord Fleet Admiral. After saying that, Roja hung up the phone. Sengoku sighed again, then picked up the phone and called Akiji. During this time, he had habitually left some things to Roja. After all, Luoya's work efficiency is really high. But it is absolutely not possible to continue like this. He had to support Akiji more. Just when Roja was about to notify others and prepare to set off, a man wearing a mask and a white robe came to Roja. General White Pigeon, the 5 elders are looking for you. Looking at CP0 in front of him, the corners of Luoya's mouth raised slightly. Really? I happen to have time now, so I'll go with you. With that said, Roja stood up from his seat and stretched. Then he followed behind this CP0 and walked towards the Holy Land Marijoa. This is the first time that Roja has received an official invitation to come to the Holy Land of Marijoa. stroll through the holy land of Ryujin. Roha looked at the surrounding environment, and secretly took note of the surrounding environment. Following CP0, Roha finally came to a palace-like place. When I got here, I saw only 5 old men, some lying, some standing, or lying down. But it seemed like they were all waiting for him here. CP0 bowed slightly and then retreated from the palace. Only Roha was left standing here alone. With a smile on his face, Roha looked at the 5 elders in front of him, carefully sensing their momentum. It seems that through this method, they can sense the power contained in their bodies. At this time, the bald 5 elders looked at Roha and said to Roha, "General White Pigeon, you have been very popular recently." The old man shouted sharply at Roha. But Roha didn't take it to his heart at all. Instead, she just looked at him quietly. The bald 5 elders suddenly became furious after seeing Roha being so calm. "You guy! Could it be that?" I haven't waited for the 5 elders to finish speaking. The 5 elders next to him, who was holding first-generation Kitetsu, pretended to cough, stopped the bald man, and then said to Roha, "General White Pigeon, the tranquility on the sea during this period is thanks to you. Existence, let Marine regain its prestige." After saying this, the old man holding the first-generation ghost in his hand said to Roha, "So, we want to invite you to join CP0. I think if you are CP0, you will definitely become the most powerful CP0s. Hearing the old man's words, Luo Adam immediately smiled and said, "Thank you for the invitation, but I refuse because I don't like to live with a mask. I am who I am, so I let you down." However, when Roha said this, the smile on his face became even bigger. He was not afraid of these 5 old men at all. Because now, he is Marine's sharpest sword. The 5 elders would not touch him at all. On the contrary, his current attitude can even make the 5 elders feel more at ease. If he agreed directly without saying anything, these 5 old men who were cautious by nature would definitely not believe him so quickly. Sure enough, after seeing Roha reject them directly, a relaxed look flashed across their eyes. "Since you don't like to live with a mask, then I will give you a task." "Oh? I wonder what kind of mission the Lord has given me." Roha looked at the 5 elders in front of him, and said calmly. The old man holding first-generation Kitetsu, after hearing Roha's words, immediately said, "This mission is very simple, which is to kill Stussy, the former CP0 and the Queen of Happy Street." Hearing the words of the 5 elders, Roha nodded thoughtfully, then waved to them immediately, and then said softly, "I'm sorry, adults, I suddenly remembered that I just applied for leave with Fleet Admiral. Now that I'm resting, I'll withdraw first." With that said, Roha waved to the 5 elders and then left the palace. Seeing Roha's leaving figure, the 5 elders looked at each other. That bald 5 elders obviously has a bad temper. He was so angry that he immediately slapped the table in front of him heavily. In an instant, the table in front of me turned into powder. This guy Baiga actually despises us so much? Okay, this shows that he is not perfect, at least he has pride in his heart. Perhaps his goal is really to become a Marine Fleet Admiral? Then even if Akainu takes over, Roha cannot become Marine Fleet Admiral. Regarding the words of the 5 elders, Roha did not listen to him at all. Even if he knew, he didn't care at all. Because he is a time traveler. But you know the process of history. As the wheel of history keeps turning, it is still difficult for Ace to escape from the war on top. But Roya promised to save Ace in the end. At that time, he just took this opportunity to directly ascend to the position of Fleet Admiral. At that time, there will be further separation between Marine and the 5 elders. He wanted to take Marine completely into his hands. Walked out of the palace. Roha returned to his residence, and then said to the girls in the house, "Everyone, prepare your luggage, we are ready to set off for a 4-month sea trip." Just when Roha's words fell, Roha only heard the system's electronic sound in his mind. Ding, release the check-in task, Sky Island. Mission reward Arc Proverbs. Time limit, 15 days. When he heard the system's voice fall, Luo Adam immediately said, "Time is tight. In order to enjoy a sufficient holiday, we must go as fast as possible." As Roha's words fell, Ace, Stella, Makino, Momosaji, and others in the room all brought their own luggage, arriving on Roha's ship. This made those ordinary soldiers feel a little dazzled after seeing this beautiful scenery. They simply should not envy Roha too much. It was so awesome for them to have so many beauties join his faction. However, Roha's faction never accepted anyone, which made them feel very uncomfortable. Arriving aboard Roya's general class warship, Roha just snapped his fingers lightly. In the next second, the phantom fruit ability was activated. Suddenly, 100 phantoms appeared on the warship. These 100 phantoms controlled the warship in an orderly manner. Slowly sail out from the port of Malinfando. Roha stood on the deck and looked at the chart in his hand. He knew that there were 2 different ways to get to Sky Island. The 2 ways were: continuously moving upward along the current is very dangerous, and there are many Poseidon species in it. Assuming that out of 100 people, most ships will have only a few people left. The other method is the method used by Luffy in the original work. The rising sea currents from life and death drove the entire ship to fly up, and then landed on the empty island. But this method is very dangerous, either everyone survives or everyone dies. In this regard, Roha actually has other ways. For example, using the spell ability can directly make a general class warship fly. But his current identity is Begaluya, not the leader of the morning and night birds, so it's better not to use it. It just so happened that Luoya planned to take the girls with him to practice. I chose the first method. Admiral-class warships gallop on the sea. Under the voyage of Loya Phantom's shadow clone, Roha soon learned about a sea current heading to Sky Island. Although this current is not as exaggerated as the upwelling current, but the mortality rate is also very alarming, because there are many very powerful Poseidon species lurking in the rising sea water. If you don't pay attention to these Poseidon classes, they can easily end up being wiped out. But for Roha, this is a very suitable way to train the girls. Lie on the sun loungers on the deck. Luoya was very leisurely and contented, drinking the wine in the glass. He hadn't felt so relaxed for a long time. For a moment, I accidentally fell into a dream. But the weird things have just begun. It was not just Roya who entered the dream first. Followed by Ain, Luolan, Perona, Stella, Makino, Momosaji, Tina, Khalifa, etc. They all fell into a deep sleep. Everyone collapsed on the deck, looking very casual. However, this situation looks really weird. The general class warship is sailing upward along the sea water. The phantoms on Roya's ship also dissipated one by one. The surroundings seem peaceful, but in fact there is hidden murderous intention. At any time, there may be Poseidon species rushing out of the sea. A little while passed. A shadow appeared under the Admiral Roya-class warship. The shadow gradually rose, and a very exaggerated fat-headed fish swam out of the sea. Keep pace with Roya's Admiral-class warships. The next second, I saw the fat-headed fish slowly opening its mouth. Dozens of black shadows rushed out from the mouth of the fat-headed fish, riding a powerful bull. Weiba is Kongdao's special means of transportation. This vehicle is powered by wind shells or blowing wind shells. It can travel on the sea of clouds and ordinary seas, just like a motorcycle. However, it is very difficult to operate because you need to understand the wind direction and the flow of sea water. But these black figures look like they are very skilled. He arrived next to the Admiral Roya-class warship with ease. Kuwa, it's really great. I didn't expect to encounter an Admiral-class warship. It seems that they are already fast asleep. This is mainly because the captain is great. You must know that the captain is a Paramecia sleep fruit power user. As long as the fruit power is activated, anyone targeted by the captain will fall into a deep sleep. Hearing the constant praise from his own crew members. At this time, Captain Kuwa couldn't help but laugh out loud. Kuwa, I can put the general into a deep sleep mainly with your help. One of you is the binding person of the binding fruit. You can bind to a creature and communicate with each other. Without your fat-headed fish, we would have no way to hide in the sea. The other one is an illusory person with an illusory fruit. It can make creatures and objects illusory and difficult to detect. Without your help, we would never be able to take them down. 3 figures are complementing each other here. They don't look like a pirate group, more like a pirate group. They know what it means to make a fortune silently. Therefore, even among Marine's various intelligence departments, there is no information about them. Okay, Captain, let's go up quickly and let's see which general fell into our ambush. Kuwa kuwa kuwa. Captain Kuva laughed loudly. He immediately threw out his rope and climbed onto the Admiral Roya-class warship. Just when the 3 people tried their best to climb to the deck, they were stunned immediately. Kuwa kuwa kuwa! I didn't expect it. This is actually the warship of General Baigu. This is definitely a huge profit. Yes, Captain, not only have I made a lot of money, but most importantly, these girls are so greedy. I just want to. How presumptuous! You don't even think about who they are. What if they wake up on the way? It's better to go search for the treasure quickly. After hearing what their captain said, the other 2 people immediately nodded and said, Yes, Captain. Then, the figures of the 3 people walked towards the cabin, trying to find the treasure inside. Just as the 3 of them walked in, Roja, who had fallen asleep before, slowly opened his eyes. Although the other phantoms on the ship disappeared directly when they entered the sleep state. But Roja still has the leader of the morning and night bird, as well as the phantom shadow clone of Leela 13, operating in other places. When he realized that something was strange, he immediately changed his subject to another identity. Then switched to the identity of White Pigeon Roja. In just such a short period of time, the power of the sleeping fruit was completely released. I have to say that he really didn't expect that he would almost capsize in the gutter. This gave Roja a clearer understanding of the darkness on the sea. Devil fruits are all kinds of weird things, and they can easily capsize if you're not careful. Thinking of this, Roja slowly closed his eyes again. He planned to give them a few thieves, a surprise that they would never forget. After a while, they finally found Roya's small vault from the depths of the cabin. This so-called small treasury is a small treasury in the true sense. He planned to give it to Nami to make an oversized golden ship in the future. So when they opened the cabin, everyone was completely shocked. Is this the secret of a general? There is too much gold. Thinking of this, they just feel that they have made a lot of money. Immediately, they didn't hesitate. Take as much as you can. From the small vault in the cabin, he took it to the deck. Then it was thrown from the deck into the mouth of the fathead fish. The fat-headed fish obeyed the orders of one of the devil fruits. Therefore, when faced with this gold, he was very obedient, eating it in his mouth 1 bite at a time, and then stored it in his body. Captain, we have moved all the gold in the cabin and can start the retreat plan. Kuwa kuwa kuwa, in that case, retreat! As Captain Kuva finished speaking, he was the first person to jump off the deck. Immediately afterwards, the 2 crew members behind also jumped from the deck. Under the control of the binding fruit ability user, the fat-headed fish that was bound to him opened his big mouth at this time. He wanted to swallow the 3 of them together, and then escape through the waterway. But just at this moment, they suddenly discovered that a figure appeared in front of the fat-headed fish.